When we look at a modern city, there's this illusion of permanence.
Of course.
Like a skyscraper goes up, and it just feels like it's always been there. You look at a map, you see the streets, the buildings, the coastline, and it all just feels fixed,
Well,
final.
right, yeah. We definitely fall into that trap of seeing cities as finished products rather than, well, works in progress.
Yeah. It's comforting, I think, to assume the ground beneath our feet is just a known, unchanging entity.
Exactly. But then you start actually digging into the urban landscape, and suddenly that solid concrete feels more like a city-sized hard drive that just keeps getting overwritten.
That is a great way to put it.
And today we're aiming our microscope at one specific spot to show you exactly what we mean. So we've got this really comprehensive historical research report on a district called North Point.
Which is located on the northern edge of Hong Kong Island.
Right. And our mission for today's deep dive is to basically unearth all these crazy hidden layers of history there. And, the overarching theme of this research is really just the sheer velocity of change.
Yeah, the pacing is wild.
It really is. I mean, in just 100 years, this specific area completely reinvented itself over and over again.
Mhm.
It transformed from this remote rocky cape into a heavy industrial hub and then into a really horrific World War II prisoner of war camp.
Which we'll get into.
Right. And then from there into a glamorous entertainment mecca known as Little Shanghai, and finally into a politically charged neighborhood called Little Fujian.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because if you stand in North Point today, you just see modern high-rises and really busy traffic.
Lots of traffic, yeah.
But underneath your feet are all those deleted files you were talking about. The colonial yacht clubs, the war zones, the neon-lit cultural sanctuaries.
Exactly.
So we're going to uncover those hidden layers for you, point out some actual physical hidden gems that you can go visit right now as a tourist, and kind of reflect on what this insane pace of change means for how cities evolve in general.
I love it. And to really understand that dense urban jungle we see today, we kind of need to strip it all back to the turn of the 20th century.
Right, back to the beginning.
Yeah. Before all the factories and high-rises, this land was basically an exclusive playground. The source introduces us to a building at 12 Oil Street. The year is 1908, and this site was chosen to be the pristine, highly exclusive headquarters of the Royal Hong Kong Yacht Club.
Wow. So this was an era when the area was considered, what, like a remote, romantic European retreat?
Basically, yeah.
Okay.
It was far from the bustling center. And the building itself was a profound statement. It was built in the arts and crafts architectural style.
Which is super rare for public buildings in Hong Kong.
Incredibly rare.
And, I mean, the arts and crafts movement was essentially a rebellion against the Industrial Revolution, wasn't it?
That's the core of it, yeah. Because the Industrial Revolution was all about using machines to stamp out thousands of identical perfect parts.
Steel, glass, that kind of thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the arts and crafts movement purposely highlighted human imperfection.
Yeah.
They wanted you to actually see the literal handprints of the mason.
Oh, wow.
So you have this building with these deliberate, uneven strokes in the rough white lime walls.
Striking red brickwork, too, I bet.
Yeah, and massive exposed chimneys, Chinese tile roofs. It was really the colonial elite trying to build this cozy, handcrafted home away from home.
Right on the edge of the pristine waters of Victoria Harbor.
Exactly.
Okay, but let me push back on this geography for a second.
Sure.
A yacht club on Oil Street. If you pull up a map of North Point today, that exact spot is completely landlocked.
It really is.
It's surrounded by highways and towers. I mean, it's like building a beachfront resort and then just paving over the ocean. How does a yacht club function without the ocean?
Well, it doesn't.
Right.
But the ocean didn't vanish naturally. It was deliberately pushed away.
Ah.
In the 1930s, the government initiated these massive land reclamation projects. They needed more flat, usable space for a booming population.
So they just dumped earth into the harbor.
Quite literally. They just dumped earth in, pushing the coastline further and further north.
Meaning the yacht club suddenly found itself stranded in the middle of a newly formed landmass.
Yeah, it completely lost its core function, water access. So by 1938, the elites packed up and moved the club to Kellett Island.
Leaving the building behind.
Right. This beautiful, handcrafted symbol of leisure was basically downgraded to a government warehouse.
Wow.
And eventually, it was even used as a storage space for archaeologists.
That's wild. But here's the cool part for anyone listening. If you go to North Point today, this century-old building has actually been saved.
It has.
It's been transformed into a public art space, quite literally called oil.
With an exclamation point.
Yeah, and you can walk right in, you can run your hands over those 1908 red bricks and actually see that deliberate imperfection.
It's really beautiful.
But the real mind-bending historical reality happens when you stand at the back of the building. You're facing this busy, noisy road, but you are standing on the exact physical coordinates where boats used to launch directly into the ocean.
It's such a visceral experience of how human engineering overwrites the natural world.
It really is. So the government pushes the ocean back to make room.
Right.
But you can't just build factories and houses on new dirt without infrastructure to support them. You need electricity.
Exactly. Which brings us to a completely different wave of development. By 1919, they build the North Point Power Station.
Okay.
But the way they source the equipment for it is just this brilliant example of early global supply chain chaos.
I loved this detail in the report.
Because of World War I, the British manufacturing industry was entirely focused on the war effort.
Right, making munitions and stuff.
Yeah, so Hong Kong couldn't get the electrical equipment they needed from the UK. So they literally scoured the globe, and the very first steam turbines used to power North Point were bought secondhand from Dawson City, Canada.
Dawson City, the Klondike gold rush town. I mean, think about the logistics of that in 1919.
It's unbelievable.
They ripped out used turbines from the freezing Canadian north and shipped them all the way across the Pacific to the tropics of Hong Kong.
It really highlights how interconnected the world already was back then.
Yeah.
And this power station essentially birthed modern North Point.
Because it drew workers.
Exactly. It drew workers, it required roads, it demanded housing.
Right. But fast forward to World War II, and that infrastructure becomes a massive liability.
Yes.
December 1941, the Japanese invade Hong Kong. The power plant is obviously a primary strategic target.
Naturally. And the manager of the plant, a man named Vincent Sorby, he actually refuses to flee.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he and his staff stay behind, fighting alongside the Volunteer Defense Corps in this brutal, desperate battle right outside the plant.
That's incredible.
They are ultimately overrun, though, and the facility is severely damaged.
So jump to 1945. The war ends, and the city is basically in the dark. The plant is a total ruin. They need to get the grid back online, but they run into this massive engineering paradox. They don't even have enough power to start the massive water pumps and auxiliary motors needed to, run the power plant.
Oh, man.
You need power to make power.
Right, of course. Here's where human ingenuity really shines in the report. They couldn't just, plug the plant into a wall.
All right.
They need an external, massive surge of electricity.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting.
It does.
The solution they came up with is just staggering. They brought in a Royal Navy submarine, parked it off the coast, and ran heavy cables directly from the sub into the power plant.
Because if you think about it, a submarine is essentially a giant floating diesel generator.
Yeah.
It uses massive diesel engines to charge its own electrical battery banks. So the engineers patched that direct current straight into the city's grid to jumpstart the plant's auxiliary systems.
They literally used a warship to jumpstart a city like a stalled car on the highway.
It's an amazing image.
But unfortunately, just down the road from that engineering marvel, we find some of the most harrowing history in the entire report.
Yeah, this is a very dark turn in the area's history. Before the invasion, the government had built a temporary refugee camp in North Point.
To house people fleeing the war in mainland China, right?
Right, about 300 people. But when the Japanese took over, they violently repurposed this tiny wooden camp into a prisoner of war facility.
Oh, God.
They crammed over 1,600 Canadian soldiers who were known as Sea-Force into a space meant for 300.
The conditions described in the source are just unimaginable. You've got 200 men shoved into a single tiny hut.
Yeah.
The roofs are blown off from the fighting, and because the camp was built so hastily before the war, it was constructed directly over an old garbage dump.
Which is just a recipe for disaster.
Exactly. The bombings exposed the trash, which led to massive swarms of flies, and that brought devastating outbreaks of diphtheria and dysentery.
And they had almost no medicine.
No.
The Japanese military command at the time viewed surrender as the ultimate disgrace. So they treated these POWs with utter contempt. They completely ignored the Geneva Convention.
It was basically a space designed to strip away human dignity.
It really was. But within that horror, there's this incredible testament to human resilience.
Yeah, the report highlights the diary of a Canadian soldier named William Allister.
Right, Alistair's diary is a crucial primary source for us here. In it, we learn that despite the disease and starvation, the prisoners fought back psychologically.
That's so.
Well, Alistair secretly painted scenes of the camp.
Wow.
Yeah, an act that would have earned him a severe beating, or even worse if he'd been caught.
Even more remarkably, they organized what they called underground classes.
That part blew my mind.
I know. They were literally pulling shattered chalkboards out of the rubble to teach each other languages, history, and math while literally dying of dysentery.
It's hard to fathom.
Why spend your limited energy on that?
Well, medical historians analyzing this era note that it was really about control. By focusing on learning and creation, they constructed a mental fortress that the guards couldn't breach.
A psychological escape.
Exactly.
Right.
And this psychological resilience played a massive role in their physical survival. Maintaining a sense of purpose and humanity is just critical when your environment is actively trying to erase it.
And it worked, to an extent.
It did. Despite all those horrors, the Canadian forces at North Point maintained an 84% survival rate.
Which is just miraculous. And the physical scars of this era, they're actually hiding in plain sight today.
They are.
If you walk around North Point, the history is embedded in the street signs. You'll cross Electric Road and Power Street. And if you see a massive housing complex called City Garden, well, it's built directly on the footprint of that old power plant.
And then there's the Kings Road Playground.
Yeah. You can go there today and watch kids playing on the swings, people walking their dogs, and you are standing on the exact epicenter of that POW camp.
What's really striking about the playground, as the source notes, is the total absence of memory.
Right, there's no official memorial plaque there.
Nothing to tell those children what happened on the ground beneath their feet. The trauma of the war was essentially paved over by this desperate need to rebuild and move on.
And that need to rebuild brought a massive demographic shift, right? It transformed this war-torn industrial landscape into an entertainment mecca.
Yes, we're moving into the late 1940s and early 1950s now. The political landscape in mainland China shifts dramatically in 1949.
Causing a massive wave of migration.
Exactly. Wealthy elites, filmmakers, skilled tailors, they all flee Shanghai and arrive in Hong Kong.
But why North Point? If they were wealthy, why not go to the established affluent areas?
Good question.
Okay.
Because North Point was heavily damaged during the war, it was essentially a blank slate.
I see.
It had a lot of available, relatively cheap land,
Right.
but it still had that foundational infrastructure. The roads, the repaired power grid to support rapid development.
Makes sense.
So these Shanghai immigrants brought enormous capital and a real taste for highly refined cosmopolitan culture. And almost overnight, the area was reborn as Little Shanghai.
And nothing captures this glamorous era better than a guy named Harry Oscar Odell.
Oh, he's fascinating.
He's like a character out of a novel. He's Cairo-born, Russian-Jewish, an adventurer who actually fought in the defense of Hong Kong and was a POW himself.
Right.
He survives all that, and by 1952, he decides North Point needs world-class art, so he builds the Empire Theater.
And Odell wasn't just building a local cinema, he was building a cultural bridge.
Yeah.
He used his international connections to bring world-class acts.
Huh?
We're talking jazz legend Benny Goodman, the Vienna Philharmonic, right into the heart of North Point.
Physically, the building itself is an absolute marvel, too. I mean, think about the architectural challenge. How do you build a massive, opulent theater to fit 1,000 people, ensuring that not a single person has a giant concrete pillar blocking their view of the stage?
It's tough. But the architects, Liu Jinkei and George W. Gray, they utilized a radical modernist solution.
Which was?
An exoskeleton. They built a giant parabola-shaped concrete arch, but they built it over the roof of the building.
Think of it like holding a heavy bucket. If you try to push it up from the bottom with a stick, that stick blocks all the space underneath, right?
Right.
But if you hang the bucket from a giant bridge above it, the space underneath is completely empty. That arch acts like a suspension bridge for the roof.
Exactly. It shifts all the structural weight outward and upward, creating this massive, completely unobstructed cavern inside.
It's an incredible engineering flex, and the source notes that a box seat cost about $3.50 back then.
Which doesn't sound like a lot now.
No, but to put that in perspective, that was half a day's wage for a skilled technical worker at the time. This was high-end glamour.
It really represented the sheer economic velocity of the Shanghai immigrants. But as we've seen, cities never stop overwriting themselves.
Yep.
As the Shanghai elites accrued even more wealth, They eventually moved to different, more affluent districts, but they left a huge geographic footprint behind.
And if you look up from King's Road today, you can still see Odell's massive gray geometric arch dominating the skyline.
It's such a cool sight.
It's currently called the State Theater, and it's actually undergoing a massive conservation project by New World Development right now.
That's great.
Yeah. As a tourist, you can still spot the original 1950s relief sculpture by the artist Mei Yuqin on the facade, and even see the remnants of the shopping arcade where those Shanghai tailors used to work.
But as those tailors moved out in the 60s and 70s, a new demographic moved in.
A completely different vibe.
Totally. This next wave was primarily composed of Fujianese immigrants. Many of them were working class or returning overseas Chinese from Southeast Asia.
And they needed affordable space.
Right. And North Point had vacancies. So they took over the footprint of Little Shanghai and essentially turned it into Little Fujian.
And with them came a very different socio-political atmosphere. The anchor of this new era was the Sunbeam Theatre, which was built in 1972.
Yes.
The research report outlines the Cold War dynamics at play here. And just to be clear to you listening, we're impartially reporting the historical facts from the source here, not endorsing any politics.
Of course.
But the source notes the Sunbeam was originally funded by left-wing groups. It was basically designed to be a propaganda window, screening mainland Chinese films to build a progressive, patriotic political base among the working-class immigrants in the area.
Right. It was intended to be this solid political fortress. But what's fascinating here is that the community it was serving, these Fujianese immigrants, they had a deep, overriding love for their hometown culture.
Specifically traditional regional opera, right?
Exactly. Over time, the sheer local demand for entertainment entirely subverted the building's original political intent. Yeah. This intended political fortress completely flipped its programming to just give the people what they wanted. It morphed into Hong Kong's ultimate sanctuary for traditional Cantonese and Fujianese opera.
I love that. It's a testament to the fact that while capital and politics try to dictate how urban space is used, the people living in that space often have the final say.
Absolutely.
It's really a miracle of cultural survival. I mean, in a city known for its ruthless commercial real estate market where everything old usually just gets torn down for shopping malls, the Sunbeam survived because the community simply refused to let their art form die.
And you can still feel that presence today.
Oh, for sure. As a visitor, the Sunbeam Theater is unmissable. It has this massive, glowing, red neon sign. It's literally one of the very last traditional neon signs of that scale left in Hong Kong.
That's iconic.
It just bathes the street in this nostalgic red glow. And right behind it is Chunyang Street.
Oh, Chunyang Street is a complete sensory overload.
In the best way.
Yeah. It's this mind-boggling wet market where the city's infrastructure directly collides with daily life.
Literally collides. You can be standing there buying traditional Fujianese green bean cakes, and suddenly the crowd just parts because a massive double-decker electric tram is literally driving right through the middle of the market.
It's wild to see.
People just step back, let the tram pass by inches from the fruit stalls, and then just fill the street right back up.
And if you know where to look, there's actually one more hidden layer to this Fujianese era.
Oh, the secret temples.
Yes. The source reveals that hidden away on the second floors of the nearby residential buildings are these secret temples.
Wow.
They are run by Fujianese monks worshipping regional deities like Guangxi Zunwang. And they are entirely invisible from the street, just operating quietly right above the chaos of the market.
So synthesizing all of this, we've gone from colonial yachts stranded by dirt, to submarines powering grids, to Shanghai jazz under a concrete bridge, to Fujianese opera beneath a neon sign.
It's a lot to take in. But the meta-analysis from the research proves a really profound point about urban evolution. That temporary solutions often become the permanent bedrock of a city.
Right.
The refugee camps, the immigrant stopovers, the emergency power fixes, they literally lay the tracks for the future. A city's identity isn't just its architecture. It's a running tally of who controlled the space.
The next time you walk down a street in any major city, whether it's Hong Kong, New York, London, wherever, remember North Point. You might be walking over a vanished coastline or a forgotten war zone or a hidden network of temples just one floor up.
Exactly. History isn't just locked away in museums.
Right. It's hiding in the street names, it's in the unnatural slopes of the roads, and it's buzzing in the neon signs right above you.
It really requires us to look at our daily environment with a much more critical, curious eye.
Which leaves us with a final thought for you to chew on today. If a historic site of immense suffering, like a POW camp, has no physical memorial, and a political theater shifts its entire purpose just so the community can survive, well, who really owns the history of a city?
That's the big question.
Is it the people who originally poured the concrete, or is it the local community who simply refuses to let the memory be deleted? Something to think about the next time you step out your front door. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. See you next time.